Welcome everyone. Today we have a special guide for Borderlands 3. We'll be looking at the type of the guns we can find in Borderlands 3, which there will be millions and billions of guns variation, but those were arranged from the 9 of the existing gun manufacturers for Borderlands 3. There are different manufacturers for special reasons. Each manufacturer have a special ability. Here for Atlas, the bullets will be tracking, and also for COV, they have no ammunition, but those guns can hit up. We'll go through those in detail. On the second part, we'll look at one of the biggest factors in Borderlands 3, which are the elements of damage. There are 6 different elements. It goes from kinetic to radiation. We'll also go through those in detail to allow us to have the best chance to counter the early flash units, which are humanoid. Later we'll have the robots with armor and shield, and also other monsters. So let's go into detail. Big thank you to Nikai Gamma and also Ammo Boohoo to make this particular cheat sheet for Borderlands 3. I did come across this on the net and I find it really useful. So I really want to thank them, and make sure you guys say hi to them if you happen to see them on stream or on YouTube. So really helpful guide over here. The first one we have is Atlas. Atlas is a special type of gun that allows you to use a grenade which will start tracking the enemy after you hit them. After track them, you can start shooting bullets in any direction. The bullets will automatically find the target. Let's have a look what Atlas look like. Here we have the variation of the cosmetics or how the guns look like for Atlas. We can see that Atlas is a pretty high-tech looking gun, and it usually have a grenade launcher, so this way it allows us to track the enemy and then the bullets will be auto-sinking. So this is pretty good. You can hide behind half covers and it can shoot enemies from anywhere you want. The next one we have is COV. COV stands for Children of the Veldt. This is a special type of gun introduced in Borderlands 3. Those guns do not have ammunition. Those guns have no reload time as well. So what happens with them is they will hit up. There are some characters like mods who actually enjoy the hit up guns because they will do actually more damage as the guns hit up. But if the gun hit up fully, you will be able to use the gun and you will be stuck there for a moment. Here are the customization or the skins for the COV guns. We can see that there's a form of like branching and different color variation, and the COV guns tends to be a little larger. Those are like machine guns, but they're more powerfully charged by different resource than machine guns. You don't see any of the bullet slots, you don't see any of the reload function. So those guns are more like your laser gun, your beam guns, and your super zapper guns. So make sure you have one of those when you're playing to save some of your bullets, because bullets will be massive in Borderlands 3. Next up, we have DAO. DAO is a toggle fire mode. DAO is a special type of gun, allows you to have a variation of modes. There's 2 variations of the DAO guns. One of the variation allows you to do a few shots every time you hold down to the fire button. The other variation turns the gun into an auto fire gun, so you can just spray away. This is nice because the burst fire allows you to adjust your playstyle for enemies that's far away, and then you can predict your damage and adjust how much you don't want to be overkilling. But if enemies are close up, in front to go spray and pray, you can turn on the auto fire mode and you just keep firing. Here are the customizations for the gun manufacturer from DAO. You can see that their color variation is not as high, and they're kind of between the futuristic looking guns and also the modern guns. They are quite common in the game, and it's likely we'll find a few. Those guns do not have the strongest variation from the manufacturer, but the good side is you can always be adjusting from burst fire into auto fire. Next up, we have the Hyperion. From the name of it, you can tell it's going to be high and fancy and high quality, and the gun stats shows that as well. It has really high accuracy, and the longer you fire, the stronger it gets. And not to mention that, you can also get a shield when you're aiming. So you get a small shield for incoming projectiles. So it has a defensive capability as well. As for a sniper player, I really like Hyperion guns because they're so steady and it's just a well-run gun. Those are the variations of the Hyperion guns customization. We can see that the Hyperion guns have a good focus on the scope because they do improve accuracy. They also are quite futuristic looking because they are the high-tech guns. They're usually high in quality, and those guns are one of my favorite as a sniper. Next up, we have the Jacobs. The Jacobs are very high damage kinetic guns. So when you think about kinetic, they're raw damage, they don't have any of the elemental effects. So it will do most of the 100% damage to most classes. Those guns have high damage and there's a really nice sound when you score a critical hit. Those guns also looks pretty nice. Let me show you guys those. Here are the Jacob selection. You can see that the customization for those guns are more old-fashioned. They're like the old Wild West guns, and each time you shoot an enemy, there's a special sound animation. On top of that, those guns hit very hard. So if you're going for single hand guns, you're going for shotguns or snipers, those are really good pickups. Next up, we have the melee one. The melee one is a very beautiful selection of guns simply because they allows you to toggle between two elements. If you remember earlier, the dog guns allows you to go burst fire and auto fire. This one you can switch between ice, fire, lightning, you can switch between the elements. And once you go into the elemental counters for the enemies, you can see how important it is to do 50 or even 75% more damage. So those guns are definitely one of your best pickups. They're like 2 in 1. You pick up ice, which is cryo, then you pick up incinerate, which is fire. Now all of a sudden, you counter most of the enemy selections that the game can throw at you. Here are the customization of the melee one. You can see that they are very vibrant and you can see the different color variation. Some of them goes into ice, some of them go into fire. So usually the gun itself will tell you what it goes into, and you can always adjust the mode. So if I'm fighting a humanoid, I want a fire gun, which is incinerate. If I'm going for any of the shield targets, I want a shotgun, which will probably want the blue looking guns. So those are one of the best pickups because we only have a few selection of guns to carry with us. This gun is like the price of 2 in 1, so very nice pickup. Next up, we have the Tet Ore. Those guns are quite unique. They're like grenades. So what happens with this gun is it gets tossed into the enemy and it explodes like a grenade. Then it will automatically conjure another gun into your hand, so you don't actually lose your gun, but the gun itself becomes grenade after you reload. So you can think of those, it's like this weapon has a mind of its own. Sometimes it will chase the enemy, sometimes it does something funny as you reload. So it adds an extra specialty to the guns when you reload. And this is why you want some of the builds and skills that gives you faster reload time, and maybe even with a kill streak, does more damage as you reload. Here are the customization of the Teddy Ore. You can see that they are quite like triangular or square based, which is quite solid. Each of those guns will be tossed at the enemy as you reload. So you really want to aim at the enemy as you start reloading, and keep in mind the faster you reload, the faster you shoot your guns, and the faster you can toss them again. So imagine those as free grenades. Grenades are really important resource in Borderlands 3 because you can only carry a few, and those tends to be more valuable. But as you reload the guns, you can do a little more damage this way. Next up, we have the Torque. The Torque are very special type of guns. If you guys played Halo, it's one of those guns that sticks to the enemy and explodes after. So, those guns can switch between the regular shooting and the sticky projectile. Once the sticky projectile hits the enemy, if more of them hits the same target, and then they explode more damage. So those guns are like your grenade launchers, but like more delayed and detonation guns. I do like those guns, and they tend to do massive damage. So let's have a look what they look like. As we might have expected, those are the customization of the Torque guns. You can tell they are built for explosives, and look at this. This looks like a rocket launcher, and this is probably a rocket launcher, maybe a dual-wield rocket launcher. So those guns are quite large, and they are all about the explosion. So I like those guns, and if you adjust the mode, they can stick onto the enemy, and you can delay the explosion, wait for them to group up, and they run at you, then you pull the trigger, and they explode. Lastly, we have the Vandalf. The Vandalf are pretty interesting. Each of those guns have a special argument with a charge barrel. Those can be special attachment of a laser, rocket, or even additional gun barrels. So the Vandalf are really those big guns that's very fancy with additional effects. And if you want to try a gun with a variation as you adjust its specialty, this is definitely the gun you want to try. Let's have a look what they look like. We can see the Vandalf section of guns have its specialty. Over here, this one's gonna fire rockets with a sniper. Over here, this is like a mini machine gun with a dual sniper. And this is a machine gun with a rocket launcher. So those guns are very fancy. Instead of having 2 guns, here you can have 1 gun for the price of 2. You don't need to carry a rocket launcher when you have a Vandalf. It's the same concept with the elemental guns, which you have 2 elementals. So here you have 2 variations of guns. Instead of sweeping guns, you'll be switching the modes of the gun. and some of the skills with the characters does reduce the speed of swapping those guns. Let's go into the elementals and let's have a look. There are 6 elementals as we mentioned earlier. If you remember, the Jacob guns are usually kinetic. Those are the raw damage. They just hit really hard. The downside is they do reduction to armor damage. But if you have a good gun, you can use that for anything. Even with armor reduction, it's still 20%, which is not very high compared to most of the other ones. And after that, the corrosive goes against well with armor. The cryo, which is freeze damage, goes well with armor as well, but keep in mind the cryo itself also disables the enemy. They'll be frozen into place. The corrosive will do more damage, while cryo will allow you to stall the enemy. The fire damage, which is incinerate, will do massive damage to flash units. Those units are more for early game purpose, so if you're playing early game, you definitely want to look for a gun that has fire damage. This goes up to 75% with the True Vault Hunter mode. So what is True Vault Hunter mode? This is the mode you unlock after you complete the campaign. This is like the harder difficulty for the game, and everyone and everything else starts at start except you and your guns. So you can do the quests again, you can do the side missions again. The monsters will be harder, and you keep all your guns from the first campaign. Next up, we have the shock damage. Shock does really good damage against shield, but keep in mind some of the enemies will have shield and also have the HP. After breaking down the shield, you can switch a gun into corrosive if it's armored, and switch a gun into flash if it's humanoid. After that, the new damage type is introduced. It's called radiation. Radiation is quite interesting because it does not much damage to the flash, and it does additional damage to shield only in the True Vault Hunter mode. It does do reduced damage to armor mode units. So radiation is a new type of damage. There's a few I can think on top of my head. One is with Moze and her nuke damage. Once you give the Iron Bear a nuclear launcher, and she will shoot a nuclear warhead. The other one I can think of is with Flank and his little monkey. The monkey will throw a radiation barrel, which will do radiation damage. Notice that it's not very effective against other types. It will do normal damage. Its usefulness comes from the True Vault Hunter mode, which is later into the game, much later after the campaign. After seeing the elements, we can see the particular manufacturer we want to get at least one gun with is with Melee One. Melee One allows us to toggle between elements. This means a great gun that is purple or legendary, with Melee One, you can toggle against different variety of units. We can see the amount of damage. We can have a Melee One with corrosive damage, or we can have a Melee One with fire and shock damage. This allows us to basically adjust for 2 out of the 3 enemy type. As long as we cover ourselves with multiple elements of enemies, we'll always be doing additional damage. Additional damage from the elementals is massive. If you look into the perks of the characters, most characters will not do much damage even with a late game perk, maybe 10 or 20%, that's a big damage boost. Here we're looking at 50%, 75% or even 150%. So those are definitely worth investment into understanding and picking up a few different weapons. So thank you so much guys for watching this particular walkthrough between the gun manufacturers, elementals, and how to use them. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and definitely subscribe for more guides, tips, and 100% walkthrough with all the characters for Borderlands 3. I'm super excited to play, and I can't wait to show you guys some fun builds, good ways to find legendaries, and also different farming spots. So stay tuned my friends. Please also follow and subscribe to support me on Twitch if you can, and I'll be streaming this live every day on Twitch.